Thank you, guys. Feel free to jump in at any point with questions, covering pretty much going from basic to a little bit more advanced as the deck goes on. Quickly, how many people consider themselves bloggers first? And web developers? Okay, good, pretty good mix here. So optimizers, there are a number of optimizers that are available and that can be used. Really the main goal of an optimizer should be to simplify the indexation of your website, your blog, your content, whatever it is that you are doing. They should also improve the crawlability, the accessibility, and the structure of your website. We've heard some speakers earlier talking about tags and categories and different ways to organize your content. They should also ease in the creation of metadata that's on your site. Title tags and meta descriptions are your first line of offense when it comes to Google SERP. Back when I first started getting into search engine optimization, I could stuff keywords in title tags and meta descriptions and quickly get my content to rank. Really bad practice nowadays. You want to focus on the user. You want to convince the user that your query is the best, your answer is the best, your result is the best answer for their query. That is first and foremost when it comes to title tags and meta descriptions. They should enable social SEO. You want to control how your content looks on Facebook, on Twitter, or even pins. And each one of those 3 platforms of Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest have their own language and own opportunities for controlling that content. Jetpack is pretty common. I prefer the all-in-one SEO pack over Yoast. Those are probably the 2 best that are available right now. Really, I like all-in-one SEO pack more than Yoast because it's Semper Fi, they're Marines. I don't mess with Marines. The one drawback to both of these is that sometimes they can tell you your content is 75% optimized or 80% optimized. And you still have to use your brain. These are very much made by people who have the opinion that this is what is best, and you should really be concerned and focused on what is best for your users. So just because the plugin is telling you that something isn't optimized doesn't necessarily mean that it's not serving your users in the best way possible. These plugins also make authorship and publisher markups supremely easy, and it makes it easy to get things like Google Analytics code on your website. And with Yoast specifically, when you're going through the settings, you have to make sure that you're including the code for the Google Analytics in the head tag. It defaults to the footer. Social integrations. So a number of websites have social integrations across just the blog or even the whole website as a whole. Share this, add this. Inline tweets are 3 of the most common that we see. Often they're there and they haven't been set up. They haven't had the extra 15, 20 minutes of love and attention that would really make the difference in sharing that content. So make sure to only include the networks where the company or the blog is active. If they're not on Pinterest or they're not on LinkedIn, no point in putting that button on there. Attribution, it should not end with add this. It should end with whatever your Twitter handle is so that you get pinged every time somebody shares your content. It gives you the ability to then interact with somebody to perhaps gain a follower and to thank them for sharing your content. Additionally, you can add hashtags to many of these plugins, and the hashtags are going to give your content a little bit more legs. So when you're doing optimization for a page or for a blog post, go to Twitter and just do some searches. See what has trended in the past, what comes up, and what hashtags could add value to your content. Media optimization. The previous speaker talked a lot about images and videos previously. Googlebot is going to be the most disabled user that ever comes to your website. They don't understand what images look like. They can't watch videos. They can't consume the media the way that you or I can. So they're looking at the code, and they're looking for the cues in the code. And most important right off the bat is making sure that you're using descriptive file names. So when you save it on your computer, what is this image that you're saving? So then when it gets uploaded, it's already in your source code. Your keyword could potentially be in that file image. So it's not just a date, it's not just a bunch of random gibberish. You also want them to contain alt text. Alt text is pretty important for describing what is within that image. You want it to have a unique title. So go a little bit further with the title of the image and describing what it is. And even, captions can kind of make a page visually not as beautiful. But if you're going to have captions, also another opportunity for you to describe what actual image contains. Similarly, videos. The video transcript is the most important part of video optimization. You want to make sure that you manually do it. I know there's a number of tools out there. YouTube manually does it, and if you ever have read the transcripts on YouTube, they're laughable. Often it's just mashups of words that makes no sense whatsoever. So you want to regain that control, take the time to do the transcript, get the transcript text on the page. It's going to be the most optimized, naturally optimized piece of content on your website. It's going to contain all the keywords the way that you want it. It's not going to be manipulated by a marketer. You want to put it on a page for sure. Google and search engines in general have difficulty reading PDFs.
Can you repeat that so everybody else can hear it?
I was just asking, what about the little, thumbnails that you see in Google search for video, and how do you get those thumbnails? I know you don't like Yoast, but they have a extension, like a video add-on.
So that's a rich snippet. You're talking about in the SERP itself?
Right, on the rich
snippet.
snippet.
So that's a rich snippet. I'm going to talk about schema in a couple more slides, which is what enables rich snippets. And it's actually a really interesting time because there is a lot of changes going on in the algorithm in the last week or two, and we're seeing those rich snippets disappear for some things, video specifically, and authorship, which is also something I'm going to talk about in a second here. So blogging. I don't know how many times I have clients come to me and they have the commenting turned off because they're just risk adverse to having somebody troll them. I can understand that. We can remove trolls. It's not something that is going to destroy you in the long run. It's really, really useful for creating a community around your content, for interacting with that community, for sharing thoughts and opinions. So definitely encourage everyone to comment. When you're moderating, make sure that it's a useful, it's a real image. We don't want to have pictures of a beautiful view or something like that. This is you, this is your thoughts and opinions. Make sure that it's, the image that you choose is helpful. Content calendars can be hugely helpful in creating your content, staying up on top of updating your content, and making sure that you're understanding what events are coming up, key dates, product launches, and such. It can keep you so that your content is coming out at the appropriate times. And WordPress has a pretty decent editorial calendar plugin, and the drag and drop interface is something that I really like. Maintenance. So you don't have to be a developer to perform maintenance. One of the easiest things that you can do on a day-to-day basis is a broken link checker, and this is a plugin that is available. It monitors your website for any links internally that are broken. And you want to find them before Google finds them, because when Google finds them, it's going to take some time before they tell you to find them. So it's a problem much longer than when you find out. So getting ahead of it helps the process with search engines. And you can get email notifications or get notifications on the dashboard. A tool that you could use proactively, Screaming Frog. They have a free version. It crawls up to 500 URLs. They also have a paid version. It is one of the best SEO tools available right now. It'll check for broken links. It'll give you a quick overview of where your website is at with title tags, with meta descriptions, all the different kinds of media they're able to find. Love this tool. Use it day in and day out all the time. Also, it will tell you if you have duplicate title tags, duplicate content, duplicate meta descriptions. We're going to talk about sitemaps a little bit later. This is also really helpful with creating a sitemap or checking a sitemap to make sure that it's clean. Lastly, with maintenance, you want to make sure that you're on top of anything that's going on with your website. So I would encourage everybody to go into Google Analytics and get alerts set up, and specifically 10% drop in traffic. Some brands, some bloggers are going to get more traffic on weekends versus weekdays, so it can be a misleading trigger. I have these set up for all of my clients, and I have a client in the insurance space. Nobody's buying insurance, professional insurance on a Saturday or Sunday. So I get these alerts every weekend. That's just the way it is, but you want to be on top of it. Similarly, if you have an e-commerce site, you can set these up for conversions. So if you're understanding that people aren't using the shopping cart as much one day to the next, you can get on top of any issues before it happens.
We have a question?
Are those Google Analytics alerts within Google Analytics? I mean, how would I set that up?
So you go, when you log in on the top left-hand corner, you're going to have the Google logo, and there's like 4 things, 4 navigation items. One is going to say admin, and you're going to click admin. And then I think it's all the way to the right-hand side. There'll be a section for alerts. There's also a section you can filter out your IP address so that you clean the data that you're collecting. You are going to know where everything is on your website. You're going to have the highest time on site. Potentially, you could have a pretty decent bounce rate too, depending on how you use your website. So filtering out yourself helps clean the data a lot. And then that's the same area you would go to. Every year has been mobile. I mean, I've been to so many conferences where everybody says, this is the year for mobile, 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 mobile. It's starting to become true. In December, ESPN announced, and ESPN has a fantastic data blog where they just report stats about their website, about the industry. Not what you would expect when you go to ESPN, but it's really phenomenal. In December of this year, their mobile traffic surpassed desktop traffic, and that's pretty huge. This is one of the first major websites that have reported this. Granted, December is a holiday-heavy month that is also sports-heavy, that has a lot of people sitting on the couch, but mobile is right around the corner. So you definitely want to be thinking about it. You definitely want to look at your Google Analytics and see how people are consuming your website. And specifically, if you're still early on that curve, check it every 3 to 6 months. You're not going to have major fluctuations between that until you get pretty close. And really, you just want to compare mobile with desktop usage. General rule of thumb, if 15% of your traffic or less, it's okay to wait. It's not a high priority yet. If it's 15 to 30%, I start making a case with my clients for responsive design for a mobile-specific site to get it into their heads so that when we get to 30 or 50%, it's already in the queue and we will be able to maximize that traffic and give the user the proper experience. Anything over 50%, it's way too late for you. You should have been on it already. Do it. Just do it. So things to track if you're waiting. Take out your phone, search yourself, see how you are appearing. They're changing the layout of a search results page every single day, and with mobile specifically, there's only going to be 1 or 2 results above the fold. That's anything that you don't have to scroll to. You want to make sure that you're appearing highly for your branded phrase, for any of your most important phrases, and if you're not, that signals some type of issue. You also want to specifically, if you're tracking conversions or events, specifically look at desktop versus mobile. If mobile has a very low conversion rate, but your desktop traffic has a high conversion rate, that's an issue. You need to check into that, check your forms, see what can be done. WP Touch can be a pretty quick and easy patch. It's responsive. Not the greatest in the world, but it gets it done. Schema markup. There was a question about schema previously. Keywords are what everybody is focused on, and if that's your main level of optimization, schema markup is going to be your secondary, kind of under the surface optimization practice. And it's a collaboration between the top search engines. You can go to schema.org and read all about it, see the thousands of different schemas that they have and that are being updated daily. But it enables them to understand the relationships between entities and things. And it can be very powerful when your results are displayed on a SERP. There's a number of different types of schema that you can use. The most common that we see are reviews, products, organization, NAP, which is name, address, telephone number. You need to have that consistent across all of your profiles so people can find you. And then people, entities. There's a plugin by a company called Raven, which is superb. It covers these basic 5, so you don't have to go into the database and figure out exactly what schema you need. It's pretty plug and play. It has a nice feature on the bottom, and you can just fill it in. It gives you the code. Highly recommend that. If you are if you're in Wikipedia, let's say, or you've been featured on another blog, there is a piece of code called the same as tag. And this is kind of like hyperlinking, but better, because it's letting Google know, or the search engine in this case, know that this website right here is also talked about over here. And whatever authority is on the Wikipedia page, per se, they will understand that connection and that it is part of your ecosystem. We talked a little bit about rich snippets. Rich snippets are the forward-facing version of the schema markup, and one of the ways that they come through is with authorship or publisher markup. So as a blog owner and writer, you are now a publisher. You might not be writing at the same level as the New York Times, but in Google's eyes, you can now be counted as a publisher. So you need to have your Google Plus profile linked to your website and vice versa. As an author, you are now an entity on the internet. And wherever it is that you write, you can build your authority as an internet writer by listing where you contribute to on your Google Plus profile and then getting those websites to link back to you. And it could be as simple as adding a Google Plus link in your bio if you're guest posting, and then just adding it to your profile. And this is what the rich snippet looked like. Mr. Dragon is my boss. So that's his image. And they took this away maybe 2-3 weeks ago, where they're not displaying the images in profiles anymore. But we are seeing that when somebody is following somebody else on Google Plus and they search a relevant term to whatever content that person has, these images are still appearing. So it's happening less, but it matters to whomever is following you on Google Plus. So it's definitely still important. A lot of times, if you're looking for restaurant reviews, you'll see 4 or 5 stars. That is a rich snippet. The knowledge graph on the right-hand side of the search results page is also pulling in all of the schema markup information. So it has a lot of really useful things for users. Sitemaps. If you are an e-commerce site or just a business in general, sitemaps are probably the easiest thing that you can do to improve how Google consumes or how search engines consume your website. XML sitemaps are feeds designed for search engines. They are not for people. I love reading them anyway. They're useful for very large sites. Sometimes they will be a zipped file if it's a super big site. What they allow for is they allow Googlebot to come to your website and crawl it in a controlled manner. And you're maximizing the efficiency of that search spider and how they crawl your website and consume it. When the sitemap isn't there, they will come to the site and they can go all willy-nilly, following links, not understand the structure of your website, which is what XML sitemaps provide. They also have some supplemental information. There's debates, I've heard both sides, whether the supplemental information is helpful, how often it is updated, last time it was updated, and the frequency of which the pages are updated. HTML sitemaps are for people. They're the forward-facing aspect of it. You can use your XML sitemap to create your HTML sitemap, and that's actually a best practice. You want them to both match each other. They're very useful for humans, so you want to have them structured the same way that your website is structured. So if you have categories grouped around different topics, group your HTML sitemap in a similar way. There's a number of automated tools out there. The automated tools are fantastic. They can do a great job. If there's issues with your website, they're going to appear in your sitemap. And it can be a pretty big issue. I prefer to have manual control over whatever it is I can control. So I much prefer using manual tools such as Screaming Frog, which once it crawls your website, you can spit out that sitemap. Bing, out of all the search engines, they have a quality threshold, and it's anywhere between 1% to 3%. So if you have multiple URLs that are being 404 not found, or you are relying on 301 or 302 redirects within your navigational items, they're not going to trust your sitemap. They're going to ignore it, and they're just going to crawl their site however they see fit. So it's really, really important that you update your internal navigation so that it's not relying on 301 redirects. And you also want to make sure that there aren't any 404 errors for your pages. Go for it.
Somebody have a question?
Google isn't on record for this, which is kind of funny that Bing is, but Google tends to be much more strict than Bing.
How does that apply to soft 404s? I was just reading about those in the webmaster tools for Google.
How does it apply to what?
Soft 404s, which are not really 404s in terms of status code that the server sends back, but it's where it says it's a 404, but actually returns content.
Yeah. It could be a timeout issue with soft 404s I've seen. It really all depends, unfortunately, which is why I like to use Screaming Frog, because if it's returning a 404 in Screaming Frog, it's most likely going to be an issue in your sitemap. If you're getting a lot of soft 404s, it's definitely something to fix. And when I say a lot, I try to keep 404s under 30 to 50, and I might go and check them every couple of weeks just to make sure. It's super important that your content is found, so if there's a really important page within that 40 or 50 404 errors that I have on a site, I definitely want to fix it, so I'm maximizing that content. But it's a time versus benefit analysis, basically. So sitemap should be updated regularly, depending on the amount of traffic that you are getting to your site. You might choose to do it once a month. You might choose to do it once a quarter. What is right for you is totally your decision. Everybody should have Google Webmaster Tools as well as Bing Webmaster Tools installed on their website. Bing offers you the ability to collect keyword data, which Google has taken away, which is definitely a nice feature within Bing. It also, maybe I'm putting on my tin hat here, but if you don't trust Google as much, Bing giving you more information will help vet the data that Google is providing about your website. So once you have your XML sitemap set up, you want to definitely make sure that you are submitting it to both Bing and Google via Webmaster Tools. And then test them quarterly. Take them, copy paste, drag them into a text file. You can then upload that to Screaming Frog and have them crawl it, see what kind of errors you have, fix those issues. Site speed. Site speed is increasingly important as mobile usage ramps up. And even in some countries, we're skipping desktop computers altogether, and they're just going straight to mobile phones. The speed that your website renders at is extremely important, to the point where we're seeing it a ranking factor. And the big secret with it is that you don't need to be the fastest website in the world. You need to be about 20% faster than your competitors. So if you have a faster site than your competitors or blogs that you are competing against, you are going to eat their cheese. Amazon has a case study out that says every additional second in load time costs them 10% in conversions. And if you do the math on that, it's pretty huge for a brand like Amazon. These guys also have an amazing blog that has a lot of different data out there. Their white papers are fantastic. But this is pretty true even with smaller brands. You want to serve the best experience. You don't like waiting for a page to load. Your users are no different. Generally, Google wants you to have page speed below a second, preferably a second and a half, which is pretty stinking fast. It's really hard, a lot of work. It costs some money sometimes to get it to go that fast, which is why that 20% faster than your competitors. So kind of an unscientific study that we did, we had a company that had a subdomain structure, so it was important keyword .brandname.com. They had multiple layers of development over the course of 10 years. It was really just a dirty site from a code perspective. They had a lot of plugins as well. So the two different subdomains that we tested were all coming in at about 6.5 to 8 seconds in load time, which is super slow. Through the testing, we were able to get it down to about 3.25 to 4.5. And basically, we did research on plugins to figure out what plugins we could swap out for something else, and how many plugins were unneeded, and how many could we potentially remove to help lessen the bloat and speed up the website. And just through taking away about 20 of them, we were able to cut off a good 2.5 seconds, depending on where you're testing from. So this is something that's pretty easy for you guys to do. It really just takes a little bit of research on why you're using the different plugins, and if there's an alternative, then replacing it with that alternative and seeing if it makes your website test any faster. There's a number of tools out there that you can use. Pingdom is a really great one. Google has their own tool. And really, if you just search page speed test, you can find the top 3 results are all tools that I use. The most important aspect of SEO is not anything that I talked about. It is writing. Just write for your user. Don't write for the search engines. If your users are consuming your content, they're interacting with it, and they're liking what you are producing, the search engines are naturally going to follow. I tell my team all the time that as a marketer, when we're done optimizing a piece of content or we're done with a website, we want it to look like we never even existed. And that is really the biggest goal that we have when creating content and blogs. Focus on the user above all else. So I guess we have some time for questions.
You talked about the descriptive file names for images. Are there any best practices using dashes or underscores?
Dashes over underscores. Okay. That holds true for URLs as well. Search engines have a hard time understanding, consuming what underscores are. Don't go crazy with keywords. Maybe keep it short, sweet, 5 to 6 word phrase. It definitely win.
Thanks.
And that holds true with your URLs as well.
Question over here.
When you talk load times, are we talking about the time that it takes to actually have the response come back to the browser, or does that also include the render time? Because I know
you can look at it either way. Render time is what I was quoted in the deck.
Okay.
Question in the front. Microphone on the way. Right there. Hello.
In regards to the question before about dashes versus underscore, are dashes preferable to not using dashes in terms of page names and files?
Yes, because it's
which is better?
yes, it's better to use dashes than to not use dashes. It's easier to read, for one. I mean, it just breaks it up, the content.
If you had to pick one support tool for sharing analytics with clients or preparing and that whole interaction, do you like Screaming Frog, or do you do custom reporting for your clients? How do you kind of keep them in the loop and share that information with them that's easy to read?
It depends on the client. It depends on how on top of us they are. We have monthly reporting. The monthly reporting is due by the 10th of every month. We do use Google Analytics. We'll use Screaming Frog. We'll use Moz. Moz is a fantastic tool set for SEOs. Really, it comes back down to what's your goal as an internet marketer, as a blogger, as a person on the web. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then backtracking what metrics are most important. And that's largely what we're reporting in our reports. If you're working with an agency, it should never be screenshots of GA. That is just the worst. You should never have any screenshots in your reporting that don't describe what's going on. It should say, we had a great month this month. This is why we had a great month this month. These are the actions that we did that resulted in all of that stuff.
Are there any practices that would hurt us, let's say hurt us in Google, but help us in Bing, or the other way around? You'd optimize one.
Buying links.
Say again?
Buying links.
Oh.
Yeah,
likes.
no, I mean, generally, it's a different demographic that's using Bing versus Google. It's a much smaller demographic. I've had a few cases where we've optimized for Bing and not Google. Generally, Bing is following Google to the point where a year or two ago, Google came up with as a study, they created a phony search and it had a phony SERP that they were displaying. And within 2 weeks, Bing had that same SERP, and it was ranked entirely the same. And Google accused Bing of scraping their search results. Oh. So generally, Bing follows. Yahoo, who knows what they're doing right nowadays, but they generally follow Google as well.
And one other thing, our particular website has Mandarin pages, and can you talk a half a minute or so on Chinese search engine optimization?
That's a whole nother wild, wild west thing. Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that the content you're displaying is in the local dialect. That's the biggest thing that you could possibly do, is making sure that you're not using Google Translate. You're translating your pages, working with a copywriter, working with a local marketer that is in that generalized area, and serving that result of the page.
I have a question about schema. I was wondering what you thought about Dublin Core, and is that something that we should try to comply or try to maintain on our websites?
I don't really have any thoughts on it, really. I mean, there's a lot of different types of structured markup. The big one that I'm into right now is using JSON. It's really slick how you can hide what you're doing. Freebase is the biggest community right now for schema and creating entities and different markups and stuff like that. It's a cool site. It's kind of like Wikipedia was when it really early on, and that's where I would go for a lot more resources on schema.
Hi, I have a question about e-commerce websites. I've heard that, I've read a lot of things about Google liking websites that have at least 300 words per page, but when you have a whole bunch, if you're using an e-commerce website, sometimes it's hard to get that amount about specific product descriptions.
Right.
So I'm just curious how to get around that, or do you have any tips?
You gotta do the best you can. Prioritize what your most important products are, what has the highest revenue for you, and you focus on those to start with. Category pages or different groupings of your products can really help. Schema markup is also huge. Getting reviews on the page, it can be a really great way to get that natural keywords in there, and then you have the opportunity to mark it up. You can get stars then on your SERP result. It's something that we deal with as well.
Short of me getting fired, we're going to take one more question.
Hi, my question is, when I search the Google, sometimes I see there's a little image beside the article. I don't mean the author's image, but the image of the article. How to increase the chance of that image?
Right now, they've been displaying just the news results. Basically, this is authorship or publisher markup, which is what that image is going to show. And they're only showing it for trusted sites. So having really quality content, showing them positive metrics of time on site, pages viewed, people aren't just coming to your website and bouncing back. All of those are going to lead to this. They've taken this away in the last 2 or 3 weeks, so largely we don't know what's coming next. It might be something even cooler than an image. I do know that when these displayed, it was a nice 30% lift in click-through rate, so I am quite sad that they removed these, but there's got to be something better coming.
What a great panel. Let's hear it, everybody, for Jason White.